Hello, assalamu alaikum. Good morning. Khushamdi. Ji ayanu. Goedemorgen.
Pakhairagale, ni hao, junashume, washbale, ohio gonzaimes, guten morgen, hola, boyor, privyet, kaifa hal, haleshuma chatore, ahlan wasalan marhaba, buna, mucho, gracias, swabiam, and a very amazing good morning to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and are watching World this morning alongside the very amazing, the very scintillating, the very fabulous, the very marvelous Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. Hello Shiza, how are you doing today?
Absolutely great, especially after what you called me. Thank you so much for that. What about you?
Well, I think I feel great too as well, and there's a reason why I feel great, ladies and gentlemen, but I cannot give it away as of yet.
Okay.
But for all of those people, we're opening the windows of hope too in next or the other 46 countries other than Pakistan. We hope and we pray that everybody out there who's watching us on their television screens is just in superb health and are good to go through the day.
Right. So, Shahzad, here's the thing. Remember when I always tell you, whenever you sort of introduce me in the beginning of the show, that does encourage me, of course, you know, the type of energy that you sort of, you know, it's contagious, right? I adopt onto it as well. So I feel like whatever the way that you treat the person that you're meeting actually speaks a lot about you, first of all, and actually speaks a lot about the relationship that you guys will have in the future.
Yeah.
You know, right? You know what I mean? And I feel like today it's going to be very simple and basic, but I want all of you to help one another, first of all, help people in need. And rather than, you know, going on the street and finding for someone to help, oh, I couldn't find a beggar, this I didn't pay. Why don't you ask the people around you, maybe your immediate family or your friends or the people already in your life, if they need help with something? You know, there are people, Shahzad, who are not really open or vocal about the issues that they're going through. So maybe you can be the one to actually extend a helping hand.
Exactly. And you know, I think I've got an example to share over here, and it's a quotation. It's a religious quotation though, but you know, the summary of the quotation is that, you know, a friend who actually calls you your friend, he or she really does not need to know whether you are in trouble or in problem. You know, if he or she is your friend, they will realize it by themselves, and you know, they will help you and they will extend a helping hand. But other than that, Shiza, you know, I think that we've started on a very beautiful note, because earlier, before I was associated with PTV, ladies and gentlemen, I was working for a very amazing private channel. And I'm saying amazing is because of the fact that whatever I learned over there kind of helps me every single day, even today, to, you know, make sure that I'm doing the right things within or on that path of my career. But other than that, you know, Shiza, picking up on what you said, I think that that private practice which I had for 5 years taught me that, you know, you should actually cut to the people. There's lesser airtime for everybody, so you know, you should make sure to say the most impactful words or use the most impactful words, or you know, just, and then there are people who actually make no sense on television as well, but they just want to be on television. But I think that this one thing which I learned from PTV was, and I think that I'm going to appreciate this culture too, that everybody needs to get the time which they deserve to be on the screen. And I think that that's where I actually kind of strike balance in my life as well, where, you know, giving equal opportunity to your partners. And once you start giving equal opportunity to your partner, may it be on television, may it be on cinema screen, may it be anywhere else, ladies and gentlemen, believe me that the outcome, that the result is very fruitful. You know, you really need to trust on each other. And you know, one day we are even thinking that for all of those people who have been watching our show for the last 6 years, we are actually going to let you know the kind of interaction me and the kind of non-verbal interaction me and Shiza has got, because of the fact that, you know, whenever a guest is speaking, now how am I going to let Shiza know that, okay, you know, I've got another question. So we might do a show on that too as well. But right now, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a small report to share, and it's because of the fact that 13th of February 2020, we are actually observing World Radio Day. And to give you a brief history about it, ladies and gentlemen, back in 1946, United Nations on the 13th of February actually inaugurated their own radio station to let people know and the world know what United Nations is doing in different parts of the world. So hence it became an anniversary kind of thing as well. So today, ladies and gentlemen, it's World Radio Day, and the theme is radio and diversity. Take a look at this report, and when you guys will come back, we have the kingpins of radio over here in the studios with us. We will be in conversation with them. Let's do this.
Let's
Good
do
morning.
it.
The world used to be a much bigger place, at least when you consider the difficulty involved with transmitting information from place to place. In the beginning, we simply had to walk and talk to one another, and then we were able to write and exchange letters. Ideas and music traveled the world at a snail's pace as compared to today. But then the radio was invented, and suddenly transmitting ideas hundreds of miles became a relatively trivial matter. the world became connected and it would never be the same again. Radio waves were originally discovered by one Heinrich Hertz following on the heels of his discovery of electromagnetic radiation. While experiments were performed in using this energy to transmit information, it wasn't until 1890 that the word radio was first applied, when the radio conductor was invented by French physicist Edouard Branly. Radio had been recognized as having such a profound impact on the world today that the Spanish Radio Academy put in a formal request to have February 13th be established as World Radio Day on September 20th, 2010.
All right, World Radio Day, ladies and gentlemen. And Shazad, you know, one thing I always think about, how you spoke about you learned a lot from TV. Well, that's amazing. But I feel like as compared to radio, TV is comparatively an easier medium because of course it offers visuals and everything as well, backdrop and everything. So a person might get distracted to what the person is saying on screen, you know, by all the things that the screen offers. But when you talk about radio, you are just like, you can only listen. So that impact has to be on point. You cannot go wrong. You only have to use the most impactful words and you know, the right choice of sentences and everything. I feel like it's a lot of pressure.
Exactly. Thank you very much for saying that, which is why I'm actually going to share a quotation, ladies and gentlemen, a quote which says that on TV you can see things, but with radio you have to imagine and create things. I think that this is something which defines radio the best as well. But other than that, she said the best part is that I started my career with radio and I did radio for 3 years.
Amazing.
And it was phenomenal, and I think that I learned quite a lot. And for the very first time when I walked in for an interview, there was this gentleman, Waji Akhtar, who used to work for FM 99 then. He asked me, okay, so imagine that you are actually on air.
Okay.
What are you going to say? So I just looked around the room. I could see the clock, I could see anything and everything. So my first reply was very mind-blowing for myself as well. Because I said, if I'm going to talk about each and everything in the room, I'm not going to come back to the same thing. I think that's what radio is all about, ladies and gentlemen, that people are not being repetitive, the music not being repetitive. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, since we are talking about the theme this year, it's diversity. And I think that everybody needs to get equal opportunity to express, and since it's the most diplomatic medium to convey things, I think people truly rely on radio too as well, from back in the days as well, and even today, you know, whenever you're driving. And to be honest, I'm sorry that I have to give this example, but whenever I'm in England, I love listening to radio because the radio over there is very different from the radio we have over here. But it's not that I'm doing a comparison. Obviously, you know, the kind of listeners we have over here is very different, but the kind of listeners we have over there is very different too. The kind of music they have, the kind of accents they have. So if you kind of listen to all different sorts of radio stations, you will definitely learn something new every other day.
Right, that's absolutely true. And I feel like to further this conversation, we have actually been joined by some amazing people from radio itself, and we have a lot to learn today, Shazad.
Exactly, and the best part, ladies and gentlemen, is that before we even got started with the show, there's this gentleman who actually is the kingpin of the radio here in Pakistan. Asked me if I would be interested to do a radio show or not, which I am. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, he's somebody who's actually the former director News PBC, and he's none other than Mr. Javed Khan Jadoon. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning to you as well, and good morning to the viewers as well.
Thank you very much for joining us.
And happy World Radio Day.
Happy World Radio Day, sir. Thank you very much for joining us alongside Jadoon sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we've actually been joined by somebody who you might not have seen on television, or it might be the very first time, but you might have heard him. And till date, people come back to me, you know, who've heard me on radio and say, oh, you know, did you ever used to be on radio? So that's the kind of affiliation people have with the kind of vocals you have. Ladies and gentlemen, he's none other than Mr. Zishan Nasir. He's a radio presenter. Hello, assalamu alaikum. How are you?
Walaikum salam and good morning and happy World Radio Day. And let me, you know, make it the clear over here that I have done some TV as well. So people might, you know me.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, he's been on television too. All right. So that face is familiar. All right. But last but not the least, ladies and gentlemen, I think that this lady has won hearts all over Pakistan, and not just over Pakistan, wherever she has been, because she was earlier with BBC, she's been in radio, she's been on television, she's one of our news anchors now as well, she's hosting events, she makes vlogs, and the kind of energy she's got and the kind of action she's got, I think. Yesterday what happened, that there was this person who I was talking to, and the person was like, oh, have you heard this girl on radio? And I was like, what's her name? And she said the name, and I was like, yes, I've heard this name, and she's a wonderful human being, and she does some good shows. And she was like, yes, gorgeous. I heard her on radio today, and she was just superb. Ladies and gentlemen, she does not need any introduction, because she is a packet full of energy, a bomb full of energy. She's none other than Miss Haima Ajram. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful introduction.
You deserve
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us, but let's get the conversation started.
do it.
First of all, sir, how important do you think it is to celebrate or observe a day which tells us or shares us the diversity, shares with us the diversity around, and that too particularly in discussion whenever we are talking about radio? I think I did it wrong, but it's perfectly all right.
No,
if
that
you
does
got
make
it.
sense.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Radio is very important medium, but for a country like Pakistan,
Yeah.
Radio becomes all the more important because most of the country people live in the rural parts of the country, where there is, in some cases, no electricity and no other power sources, no internet, and no
Absolutely.
broadband, no 4G, no 5G. So radio reaches the places where no other media does. And as I said, the 65% people in Pakistan live in the rural part of the country.
Yep.
Radio has played immensely important role in educating and entertaining the people.
Yep.
And here in Pakistan, when we talk about diversity, and the diversity means cultural diversity, linguistic diversity, diversity in content, and diversity in the presenters, and the news anchors, etc. So this is the kind of diversity which is required in radio, as you rightly pointed out at the outset, that radio is all about voice. But though radio is being introduced on social media platforms as well, like
Exactly. Yes.
the Facebook and the Twitter, where you can even watch your presenters and
More
your
or
news
less like
anchors as well.
podcasts now.
Why it is being done? Because it is also part of the diversity, Shahzad, because you need to reach out to the people where, basically when you talk about the people living in rural parts of the country, but in urban centers, the listeners have so many other sources of information and entertainment, including the medium wave and the short wave, which is of course goes outside the country's borders, and the FM. FM is the most popular medium of information and entertainment. Primarily it is an entertainment network. And in Pakistan there has been a mushroom growth of FM channels.
Right.
And it is really very heartening to know that FM networks are playing a key role in providing entertainment to the commuters and to other interested youngsters in particular. So diversity is a very difficult thing to achieve in our part of the world, because when you talk about diversity in languages and diversity in Pakistan, you understand there's so many languages are spoken, including the provincial and the regional languages.
Right.
So in so many languages, you need to have people who are well versed, well spoken,
Absolutely.
and are eloquent to speak on the mic as well. But it is very imperative for us, being the state broadcaster, that we need to have people who can participate in different languages, who can connect with the listeners in different languages.
Exactly.
Cultural, because diversity is also important. When you speak a kind of a dialect, the listeners in different parts of the country, they have a kind of a connect which is very special connect. And I think diversity, this year's theme, is really important as far as Pakistan is concerned.
Exactly. Thank you very much for such kind words. And ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, they're all flawless. So when it comes to speaking, I think that's what RJs are good at or radio presenters are good at. But I think for Zishan, I've got a very difficult question. I'm sorry, Zishan, that I'm putting you under the
Go
spot.
ahead.
But now, I'm going to give you my example over here as well, that when I started television, I would actually watch shows of Moin Akhtar Saab, Anwar Maqsood Saab, or for that matter, Umar Sharif Saab as well. Then when I wanted to progress a little, I would actually watch shows of Alan or, everybody else all over the world. Now, for somebody to be an RJ over here in Pakistan, I mean, I've come across so many people who might not know who Aga Nasir is or who Kaval Nasir Saiba is, and they were the presenters of radio at that point of time, where they didn't have any, for that matter, computers to play music from. So they would create a situation. That radio is long gone. Do you think that radio needs to come back, where you actually used to get a feeling that there's a scene going on a radio station?
Well, to be very honest and to be very frank, yes, at some extent you are very right that we do not have that kind of a people now, which which we used to have like in our past times. But with the new time, new people comes, and new thoughts has to come. That's why we are here and we are discussing the radio and the diversity. As far as the giants of radio is concerned, we do have Jadun Saab with us, as to be very honest, it's really honored to share the studios with with this guy, because we grew up while learning from him and watching him. Rather, I would say that the radio is now needs to be more advanced, because the date we are talking about, we really need to be diverse, not in in only like in a talking sense, but like in a practical sense as well. And on some private channels, I've felt that they are kind of a diverse and they are doing some sort of work like on diversity. But to be very honest, and I'm sorry for saying that, but on a state channel, I don't find it like in that way, which we should have it on.
All right. Well, I may or may not agree with you, but we will definitely dig deeper into that conversation. But Saima, for you, I have a different question.
Yes.
And I will actually give you time to
This
think
is
about
full
that.
of vanity, whenever you're going to see her, you'll be like, oh, yeah,
So you're on the screens as well. You're on radio as well.
Yes.
So I want you to sort of present a difference or a comparative analysis of what goes behind a radio show and a TV show. So from what I've never been to a radio station, but for the RJs
makeup,
I've been
no
in
good
conversation
clothes,
with,
no nothing on
no,
radio.
but other than that, it's sort of a closed room with no interaction or no sort of feedback at that exact moment, unless of course there's live calls involved. But TV is different because there's cameras, and then there are cameramen as well, then there are producers and everything in front of you too. So you have that feeling of, okay, I am a team over here. Is it really that different? Hold on to that thought. Think about it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now headed to a very short break. And when we come back, Saima will let us know if TV and radio are different and which one is actually more stressful.
And before we go towards the break, ladies and gentlemen, one more thing, and that is that since I've actually took names of people who've done very wonderfully, they've spent some amazing years on radio, I think that it will be very relevant to speak about people who are very amazing on radio today. I think Sophia Anjum is one of them, Khalid Malik is one of them, Saima for that matter is one of them as well. I mean, it's always a personal choice, but I think that it is important for newer generations to know the people who are actually doing a wonderful job on radio.
Absolutely.
Anushe, for that matter, is doing a wonderful job. So with that, we're going for a short break. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, Saima's taking over.
Stay tuned. Good morning.
Passion for polo will be the highest on the world's highest polo ground. Chandur invites visitors to experience a traditional polo tournament between the teams of Chitral and Gilgit. The tournament is held on Chandur Pass, the highest polo ground in the world, at 3,700 meters above sea level. The first time a polo tournament took place on the Chandur Pass was in 1936. It is a place unique and exotic in itself, surrounded by some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in the world. The event marks the annual rivalry between the teams of Chitral and Gilgit. The polo tournament has some added attractions for the visitors: trout fishing at the nearby streams and lakes, and a festival of folk dances and music of northern Pakistan. The event in itself offers a fascinating insight into the lifestyle of the people of this region. Their culture and indigenous customs are a delight to behold for the visitors. Crystal clear lakes, snow-covered mountains, alpine flowers, and vast stretches of green grass are added attractions. Fairs and festivals of Pakistan.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. For everybody who just got tuned into PTV Boy, you watching World this morning alongside the very fascinating Shiza Hashmi and Shahzad Khan. But ladies and gentlemen, before we headed out towards a short break, ladies and gentlemen, Shiza posed a question towards Saima Ajram, who being one of the most famous RJs over here in Pakistan. And since she's on television as well, so Shiza actually wanted her to tell the audiences out there whether is that TV she loves the most or is it radio?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's a really tricky question, I have to say, because it's
Let's
quite
begin
challenging.
with the differences
Because
then.
differences, favorite, I have to say, sorry, मैं कह दूंगी, दिल से it's radio, because I started my career in radio.
Okay.
And radio has been a medium that, जैसे जदून साहब ने mentioned किया earlier, कि radio is a medium that's been going on for centuries and centuries. It's maintained its spot.
Absolutely.
Podcasts have come. Music has been digitized. I started my career when we played CDs, and now look at how it's evolved and changed. In terms of being easy, I would say for me radio is easier.
Okay.
Because there's no pressure on how you look and where you have to, your expressions, etc. You just have to be yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
It's within you. You have to be a descriptive kind of, talkative kind of person.
Yeah.
And my parents often tell me that you used to speak so much from since you were born. You were always destined for radio. So I think radio for me was always going to be the way.
Okay,
All
so
right.
you did choose one.
Yes,
But that's
the radio
great.
for me is now, it's just second nature.
Okay.
Well, it's great, and building up on that, since we were talking about radio over here, but I think that there are a few restrictions on radio too, where you get crazy callers, you get people who follow you, and then there are people who send in a lot of messages, letters.
And weird requests.
In the mailbox, and weird requests as well. So building up on that, what's the most weird request you've ever got on a radio station?
Oh my goodness me, because I've...
And you think that too.
I've had a career, obviously, in the United Kingdom as well, and then I came over here. I had one fan who was in prison at the time, and he sent me my name made with matchsticks,
Okay.
and a letter written in red ink, and I wasn't sure. And then he said that he'd written it in blood,
Oh,
and I was touched, but it was quite
How to
scary
feel
as
about
well.
that?
I was. You get used to it.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
work for the BBC. You get trained upon health and safety, and that's very paramount. It's important. But you get used to it along the way. You have passionate fans everywhere. Everyone has their own way of expressing themselves.
that's
And
true.
that was his way of expressing himself.
Yeah.
But that's
And
quite intense.
listeners come from
That's the
far
only
afield.
thing you
It's
get in
nice.
a prison, you can only get a
Cut
matchbox,
yourself.
what else?
And a radio.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of listeners in radio, in prison especially. Like fans are a very important part of this job,
Absolutely.
even on television. Your fans are what make you and break you, and it's their love. Everyone has their own way of expressing love, and I think it was
Exactly.
beautiful in its own way.
It's
That's
cute.
great.
Yes,
Sort of.
sort of like
creepy as well.
borderline.
What about you? The
Well,
weirdest request you got.
one of the most weirdest requests I've ever, received was to mimic someone, who is in some sort of, very happening position. So sometimes it's really hard to mimic that guy, and all that stuff. But for
To
me,
do it on your show?
yeah,
Oh, and
while
you
on
did?
air, while being on air. Yes, I did.
Okay.
But in a in a shorter way.
Yeah.
So and one thing I which believe on that why the radio is much better and closer to the people rather than TV, because if you have a TV in your home, you have to build one consensus in your house that whether you would like to watch a drama or a match. But radio is something a very personal medium. Everyone can have it in their pocket, or we are very blessed generation to have that built-in radio in our cell
Right.
phones. So this is one of the most happening thing. That's why radio came back in the boom.
Yeah.
I do think that's very challenging as well, because before, initially when radio started, it was the whole family would sit around this radio, you'd listen for the news, breaking news.
Right.
Then the TV came
Roza
along.
kab
But
khulega,
radio
roza
was
kab
a
band hoga.
radio was a secondary thing, right? And now, and we were only in competition with the local radios around us or the FM channels, but now the competition is huge. The whole world is at your fingertips,
Yeah.
in your
Right.
mobile phones. How do you make yourself more different? How do you reach out to your target audience? It's a lot more challenging than it used
But
to
I'll
be.
tell you, I don't feel like in the coming years, sooner or later, radio is going to go off. I think it's going to continue for quite some years now, right?
Especially here in Pakistan. I think just the way Jadoon Saab mentioned, here in Pakistan and rural areas, it's still a big thing in a developing world. I think it's going to grow a lot more.
Exactly.
Actually,
Obviously,
you're right.
whenever you visit a village, you will see a tractor trolley passing by, radio turned
Yeah,
on,
absolutely,
louder notes,
absolutely.
and you literally enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I know, Shiza, that you have a question,
It's
but
okay.
this is a very important thing which
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Jadoon Saab. So Jadoon Saab, there are three other sub-themes to this year's theme, which is diversity. I'm going to speak about them. I'm going to let you know what are those sub-themes, and then you can let us know how can we actually inculcate these values into our radio stations as well.
Okay, let's
Advocating for pluralism in radio, including a mix of public, private, and community broadcasters. Second is encouraging representation in the newsroom with teams comprised of diverse society groups. And the third one is promoting diversity of editorial content and program types reflecting the variety of the audiences.
Shahzad, very, very important sub-themes. When you talk about diversity in content, here you are talking about diversity in the newsroom. The kind of a news you are trying to give to the people in a given society like Pakistan, what people are interested in. In Pakistan, unfortunately in the past as well, political news or the government news has been the dominant news. Most of the airtime was consumed by the government news, and what really happens is people start losing their interest because lack of diversity. And now diversity has started taking place, and the present government, I would like to particularly mention the PTI government's tenure. No press advices and no directions to the managers of the state broadcaster what kind of a news you want to include and what kind of a headline you want to include. It is entirely to the editorial judgment of the newsroom that the news as it takes place, you can include that. And this is really good. I think it has helped in enhancing the base of the listeners. Including once you start going on the social media, including Twitter and Facebook as well. So let us talk about the diversity in content.
Let's do it.
The political news, of course, you can't really avoid, you have to include, because everywhere in the world the state broadcaster's responsibility is to project the policies of the government. Because in the private sector you see a lot of media which is talking about different issues other than what the government says. For example, the government policies in the economic sphere, in the political sphere, in energy, in other sectors, the rising inflation, how it is going to affect the people, and what steps the government is taking to address these particular issues. While on the contrary, the private sector talks about the negative side of all these policies or the lack of policies as well. So the political news, and then you go to economic news, the cultural news, sports news, technology, science, and of course the world news. Because you are part of a state broadcaster, you know that the world news, we are part of the global village. You really can't avoid not broadcasting the world news. We need to know what is happening on the global arena, on the global stage. So I think in particular, the state broadcasters are talking about these diversities, and I think this is a good
This is a good sign, sir, but now I have a very different opinion over here, and I'm sorry, and I think Saima and I have discussed this prior to this show as well, and that is that I think that the broadcasters over here do not even know what news is, sir. I'm very sorry that I'm saying it, but you know, kisi ki gaye khadde mein gir gayi is the news on our television. That's not where we talk about diversity. How do you think that we're going to train our people so that they know what news is actually? You know, because over here we are like, oh, you know, President Saab ne bhi keh diya sir ke mehengai bahut zyada ho gayi. That's not news. I mean, news needs to be something very informative for the other person, which he or she can utilize in his or her daily life.
So while you said editorial independence is great, PTI introduces, yes, I agree with that as well. But I feel like like Shahzad said, there needs to be a certain sort of a watchdog as to what you're giving out to the people as well.
Yeah.
Of course, I think credibility of the news is very, very important. When you say that he said, she said, of course, is not the news anymore. But really can't compromise on the credibility and the accuracy of the news as well. What in the private sector, they say something and then the news is retracted, and you stop even airing that particular news because that is not confirmed from at least two sources, which is the golden rule. Saima has worked with the BBC and the state broadcaster in Pakistan. We have always followed those golden principles of at least confirmation from two sources, and then you air the news. That becomes undeniable. So the undeniable news is the most important news. Otherwise, that is not a news. When it becomes deniable, it is not news. So I think, of course, we have to include the news from the government, politics and the governance issues as well. But we, while not compromising the accuracy, and of course, you have to create balance as well, which is not there in the private sector. Unfortunately, talk shows day in and day out focusing on just one simple thing criticizing the government. They believe that the TRP factor is the
Sells
most
more,
important
yeah.
factor.
Yeah.
Target rating point, and then you earn a lot of money. But the state broadcaster doesn't do that. For them, information, rather we call it infotainment, information and
Exactly.
entertainment.
Yeah,
that is the
absolutely.
prime objective. So giving information to the people, information along with entertainment, but without compromising on your credibility, accuracy, and being a balanced outlet and a balanced broadcaster.
I'm your fan from now
Yeah,
on, sir.
I think
I'm your
that
fan.
made
I
a lot
like
of
you,
sense.
yes.
It really
I am a
made
fan
sense.
too. I do want
Yeah.
to add here that I think that especially our private channels can be a bit more diverse. They need to be more diverse at this point. I think as audience from outside Pakistan coming in, I used to presume everyone was Urdu speaking, Punjabi speaking, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then when I came here, I realized there are hundreds and hundreds of different cultures. Where have they been all my life? How come, why have I not heard of them? And I think there's a lack of representation of that colour in our media. On social media, you can see some of it, but they're not news journalists.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
agree
so
with
some of
you.
these viral stories that you see, they don't have to worry about the accuracy, like Sir just mentioned. They don't have to worry about having an accurate story and making sure that there are two sources
Right.
supporting it. That's just wildfire. But our actual channels should stop chasing the TRPs, I think, and worry more about this and think more about how we represent ourselves as a nation to the rest of the world.
I agree with that, and I don't know where or when this TRP thingy started, but it's taking us down, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
But speaking of TRP, while a lot of hosts, you both being one of them, you would think about I really want the rating of this particular show of mine to go up, and then you may resort to certain things as well. So what I want to ask is there a certain formula or a pattern that you have to follow that is time pe main ye bolunga and then it will get popular, it will get a lot of attention? Did you ever do that, and does that happen?
Obviously, everybody does that.
Well, to be very honest, in radio, I'm not sure about rest of the people, but in radio, as far as my experience is concerned, we do not go after for the ratings and all that
Right.
stuff, at least on the radio. As far as your question is concerned, yes, sometimes we do, do these sort of stunts on air, like कहीं जाइएगा नहीं लौट कर कुछ ऐसा बताऊंगा
Yeah,
जो पहले कभी नहीं हुआ. So these sort of stuffs we do on radio, but it's not like this that specifically we formulated for something that
Okay.
we are manipulating something for the ratings. At least in radio we are not doing it.
Okay, but with you, I have a very different
Yeah,
question.
go ahead.
Okay, so when you like we used to have even iPods when they were introduced, there was a
Yes.
radio option on them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about an RJ, the relationship between the listener and the RJ is intimate. I'll tell you how, because even late night, man, it's 3 a.m. in the morning, you're lying down in your bed
Sassi
trying
yaad
to
aa gayi
sleep. No, trying to sleep, but then there's someone in your ear continuously speaking. So even if you want or not, first of all, there's a whole world where you can imagine what they look like, and then you're sort of addicted to their voice. You want to listen, you sleep to their voice, and you listen to their voice in the day as well. So did you receive any sort of again, I'm coming back to that, this sort of feedback from a person that
See,
this is
I
how my day goes?
established a while ago that before I used to get quite afraid when people would meet me and say, "Oh, we didn't imagine you to look like this. Oh, you shouldn't be on radio. You should be on TV." That was a compliment as well. Not that I've noticed to radio. I love radio. And then there was this fear when I'd meet people, I'd get a bit overwhelmed. But then I realised that actually, Saima, these people have had a relationship with you. Because you broadcasted thousands and thousands of people in one go,
Exactly. And
and
you
all of
know
them have
what
their
they were
own
going
relationship
through.
with you. I can't close myself on that. I have to maintain open, because I have to be who I am. The best thing for a broadcaster, my advice, is to be who you are. It's very difficult to pretend to be someone else for all that time.
Exactly.
Very difficult. It's very and this whole TRP thing, I've actually never thought of it. That's probably why I'm not as successful. But I should think
Exactly.
about it.
I was
Get
gonna say
masala
that.
done.
Yeah.
This my show here at City FM 89 is viral. It's about viral content. It's what's trending in Pakistan anyway. And I try to give it a news source. I try to still do make sure that two sources are confirming it before I talk about it. But I give the whole story: what, where, how, and why. So I give a complete story. I try my best to do that, to make sure that it's factual. It actually happened, when it happened, how it happened, and how many people are talking about it. And this is something that I try to do. But in terms of personality, people have had a relationship with you, so you have to remain open when they meet you.
Right.
Thank you very much for being so honest. And ladies and gentlemen, today I think I'm going to give away this technique that how you actually can be yourself. Ever since I was on television, while I was a part of this reality show where they picked me up and then I won it, that's a different story. But every now and then, I would meet another celebrity and I was like, what do you want me to do? And how do you think that I should actually work? So everybody would be like, be yourself. Be yourself. I was like,
How to be
how
yourself?
can I be myself? And then eventually it took me time. It took me 5-6 years to realize that the way I was speaking at home, the way my energy was at home, the way my energy was with friends, it just needs to be on the same level. You cannot pretend that you are going to be somebody. All you need to do is be yourself. So that be yourself is the way you talk with your mom, the way you're with your friends, the way you eat out with your friends, and whatever type of conversations you have, that's you. That's something which you really need to share with the audiences, because you as a person are very unique, and that uniqueness needs to be on air.
Wow,
I think what I say to people is own who you are. You know, people used to say to me, be yourself, Simon. I'm like, I am. This is who I am. This is me. This is me. But own who you are.
Yeah.
And just be happy with who you are. Be content with who you are, and just push.
Thank you very much for saying that. And because we are only left with 5 minutes or so today, what we are going to do is that we're actually going to ask you guys to, whatever way you guys open your radio shows, please do it for us today over here on television. This is your camera. Pretend as if you're in a radio station.
Because we want to see it as well.
And we're going to get started with Jadoon Saab. So Jadoon Saab, for the very first time, whenever you were on radio, whatever words you said, please go ahead. We want to hear them.
Assalamu alaikum, 1 p.m. This is Javed Khan Jadoon, the English News Bulletin being broadcast from Radio Pakistan.
Wow, that's wonderful. Yeah, that's the opening. What about you, Zihan?
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum Pakistan. क्या हाल है जनाब? ठीक ठाक खुशबाश उम्मीद करते हैं बिल्कुल ठीक ठाक होंगे, जहां होंगे हमारे साथ होंगे। हमें कहते हैं FM 101 पाकिस्तान, मुझे कहते हैं ज़िशान नासिर, और प्रोग्राम सुन रहे हैं आप इवनिंग ड्राइव टाइम। इसी के साथ चलते हैं नेक्स्ट गाने की तरफ। True.
Ooh, wow,
like
wonderful.
that.
What about you,
Nice.
Saira?
Okay, what would I say? I'd say, wait, let me think.
What do you usually say?
That's what I'm just trying to think. What do I normally say?
Yeah, what do you normally say? Come on.
Okay. Good morning, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to City FM 89. You're tuned into Viral with me, Saima Adram. I'm now going to be with you till 12 o'clock, and in between that time, we're going to have some fun, playing you some great music, and bringing you all the viral stories that are making waves on the internet. Let's kick off with a track now. This is Dua Lipa.
Wow, that's great. Dua Lipa, I love Dua Lipa too as well, but very quickly now.
Shazad, I'll take just 30
Sir,
seconds.
Oh, sure.
Whatever we have talked about, the diversity in content, and then the RJs and the DJs and newscasters, etc. The two most important things, the key factors, if they are missing, you really can't achieve diversity.
Exactly.
One is the training. In Pakistan, we have got lack of training facilities.
Yep.
Second is the anchor or the newscaster or the RJs, etc. They need to be well read.
Exactly.
Unless and until you are very prepared, you know your topic, and you have really you have been into reading all these topics. Because once you are on the mic, there are no chances of making mistakes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wrong information will not only tarnish your credibility,
Exactly.
but the credibility of your medium, your station as well.
I agree with
so
you.
I think these two important things, they have to be incorporated.
Sir,
for
thank you very much for saying that. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to second it as well, because on radio it's the mic, but for television it's the camera. So somebody from across the border actually said that the camera is actually the God's eye. So always make sure that you watch your actions. And I think that was the most wonderful thing I've ever heard. But now, sir, thank you very much for being on World this morning. It was great. So all three of you. So ladies and gentlemen, this is how things need to be. This is how you improvise. So imagine that all three of you are supposed to close our show for us today. And everyone's going to get a line starting from you. So you guys do the closing. We're just going to give away
Our links.
where people can actually write to us. So ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that you write to us on our Facebook page, which is with the name of
Well, this morning.
On Twitter.
Well, this morning without a G.
on YouTube.
BTV World.
And the rest, ladies and gentlemen, I think all of our three legendary radio presenters are going to do it. So, sir, starting from you, everybody gets to say a line. And towards the end, you get to say bye-bye. Good
All
morning.
right.
Yeah,
Let's
let's
this
do
is
it.
Javed Khan Jadoon saying Allah Hafiz, Happy World Radio Day.
Okay. अल्लाह आपको अपने हिफ्ज़ ईमान में रखे, किसी कमज़र्फ़ का मोहताज ना करे, कोई गम ना दे सिवाय गमे हुसैन के। Bye-bye.
क्या बात है? Wow, wonderful.
So we'll be back tomorrow morning at the same time. Do make sure you stay tuned wherever you are. Enjoy the rest of your day. From all of us in the studio, it's goodbye for now.
Wow, that was wonderful. I'm not leaving the studio today, ladies and gentlemen, because tomorrow I'll get to see Saima again. Wow, that's great.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much for
Thank
joining
you,
us. It
guys.
was wonderful
Amazing.
to have you. It was fantastic. And everybody who's out there, ladies and gentlemen, I think that these are the things which we need to work on. And if we work on all of these things collectively, I think that we'll shape our community and the society in a very positive manner, which is the need of the hour. Please make sure that you do that too.
Absolutely. Till the next time, take care. Bye-bye. Good morning.
Good morning.